First, I'm just going to give a real quick history here. The manufactured cigarettes in the 1880s, it's really changed the face of tobacco use. Before that, it had been smoked in pipes largely. This made it a manufacturing phenomenon, and by the 1920s, virtually everybody was smoking cigarettes that were manufactured, and the American Tobacco Company was the largest tobacco company in the United States. The next big boost to tobacco promotion came during World War II, when we had the troops being given cigarettes, and PXs and other kinds of military bases selling cigarettes cheaper after the war, up until quite recently, actually. And you can look back in time and see that cigarettes were heavily promoted, particularly on television, because there were only, for you young people, this is absolutely crazy, but there really only were 3 channels on TV, you know, so you couldn't miss it. And they'd use sports figures, they'd use celebrities, and it really normalized tobacco. I mean, to this day, anybody kind of my age can pretty much remember some of the jingles, even how sick that is. I can't remember what I did last week, but I can remember those. But then the bombshell dropped in '64 with the Surgeon General's report, and this was really the first documentation that smoking was dangerous, that smoking did cause lung cancer and heart disease. And I think that the message from this one, I'm going to divide this up into 3 phases. This is tobacco phase 1, the smoker has a problem. That's what this said, the smoker has a problem. And then after that, a number of things happened, but we did begin to do some public policy work around smoke-free. But it really wasn't until this report came out in '93 that documented from the EPA that secondhand smoke was a Class A carcinogen and was dangerous, and there was no known safe level. That was a critical term. And in this shifted over to phase number 2 of tobacco control, where the smoke was the problem. And then you ended up having a lot more smoke-free laws, and you were able to mobilize a very broad base of people, because you weren't just dealing with smokers, you were dealing with adults, you were dealing with kids in particular. That was a very big sea change for us in that. The next phase in this is a picture here of all of the tobacco executives, CEOs in the country, testifying and lying in front of Congress, telling them that they knew nothing about how addictive nicotine was. A very brave attorney general down in Mississippi with some friends of his launched a lawsuit that claimed that states had been deceived by the actions of the tobacco industry in addicting smokers, and states were picking up the tab for their Medicaid bills. They sued them and settled out of court. Billions of dollars on the table that came to states with no strings attached, unfortunately. All states had a great opportunity to do something, most did nothing. Maine actually should be proud of what it did. We're a leader, continue to be a leader in how that money has been spent. This was the 3rd phase of tobacco control. I'd call it the industry is the problem. So then, fast forward to about 2007 or so, this new product comes on the line, the electronic cigarette, electronic nicotine delivery systems. These things came in from China. They came in under the radar to a large degree, and they were completely unregulated. There was no regulation in terms of advertising, no regulation in terms of ingredients, nothing. And they really caused havoc and continue to cause havoc with some of our smoke-free laws. While the large tobacco companies do own their own brands of electronic cigarettes, much of the growth in the market is in these small vape shops that are kind of boutiques, and they border on, they almost have like a bar-like atmosphere, and in some states you actually can serve alcohol in these things. So that's the kind of the new part of the industry that hadn't really been there 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I think all of you know in this room that finally, after waiting almost as long as they possibly could, the FDA finally did the deeming regulations. Not one of the high points of the Obama administration in waiting that long. So I want to talk about some of the influences on tobacco control in the future, and you can see those up there. We'll talk about them individually. Political gridlock. Tobacco never used to be a partisan issue. And now it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, that's what the problem is that we have here. We've got people who don't want to do anything because they fear that it's government getting bigger and creating a nanny state. And then you have others who are really powerless to do anything for political purposes or other sort of imbalances in some of the systems. Tobacco fatigue. Are we done with this yet? And we're working on it. I've been working on this for 40 years. Come on, are we done with it? You know, it's just the idea that not only, and particularly I think in Maine, you know, because a lot, we've been very successful, so people don't look around and they don't see the problem like they used to with secondhand smoke. So aren't we done with this? You know, I thought we were done. Well, two things with that. One is, we're not done when it comes to certain populations in this state. When we have a Native American population that has smoking rates of 50%, we're not done. When we have Medicaid women who are smoking during pregnancy at 30+%, we're not done. Just because the middle class white people are done with it doesn't mean it's done. So we need to stay on this, even in the face of significant other public health challenges around opioid addiction, obesity, domestic violence, fill in the blanks. Our messaging is crap. I mean, we've gone 10 years without an increase in the cigarette tax, even though it's the most effective single strategy. We cannot get that thing over the goal line. And the problem's twofold. You've got the Republicans on one hand who don't want to tax anything, and then you've got the Democrats on the other hand who see it as regressive, which is another excuse for them not to vote for it. And so we've got to figure out a better way, because we haven't raised that tax in so long. We're almost, unfortunately, New Hampshire's almost passing us, if you can believe that. So now we've got another goal conflict coming. You know, with the advent of these electronic nicotine delivery systems, we have sort of two camps that are evolving here. We have the abstinence camp, and they each have two different goals, and we don't talk about that enough. The abstinence, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Well, we're trying to achieve complete independence from nicotine addiction, or are we trying to achieve reduction in tobacco-related diseases? And those two are sort of pitted against themselves. One is get rid of the combustibles, one is get rid of all kinds of nicotine delivery systems. And that battle goes on. It's made more complicated because many of our very strong tobacco control advocates are on either side of this issue. And believe me, I witnessed at Northeastern in the conference the battleground there that sunk to a new low in public discourse, but it was actually fun to watch. Recreational marijuana legalization. This is another thing that, I don't think we even really know exactly what this is going to play out to be, but I do know one thing, and I can say this because I'm retired. The major organizations that were leading the charge around tobacco control have taken a pass on this, and I'm very disappointed that, and I'll name the heart, lung cancer, taken a pass on this issue, and there's no doubt that if we legalize this, more people will be smoking. And there's just no doubt. I mean, that's evident. Healthcare costs and the high healthcare costs and the association between those and tobacco use will continue to keep tobacco as a critical issue in keeping costs under control. So it's not going away for that reason alone. Quick things of advice. I can go back. Remain science-based. I think there's nothing worse the movement is to get beyond what the science is, and I think that puts everybody at risk for looking like we don't know what we're talking about for credibility issues. Cultivate issue champions. C. Everett Koop, some of you may not know this, but when C. Everett Koop was nominated by Ronald Reagan to be the Surgeon General, he was vigorously opposed by the American Public Health Association. Turned out to be a pretty good appointment, I think, from a tobacco control point of view. We've had ours here in this state. One of our major champions was Dr. Bob McAfee, a cardiovascular surgeon who spoke often and very effectively. Steve Rowe, obviously, would be one of the other big champions. We need more. We need more. Desperately, we need more. And then I gotta say to you, remain persistent. I've been in this public health field for over 40 years, and there's two things that I've gotten out of that. One is be very comfortable with delayed gratification, because nothing happens fast in this field. And keep your sense of humor, because if you don't have a sense of humor, you're not going to last very long in this field. So thank you very much.